Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hello.
Good evening, ma'am.
Right, okay. Can you actually give me some kind of a reminder about what I did last time? Where did I stop and all that? Can you kindly do that? Yeah. Can you actually tell me what I did last time? We are meeting after 2 weeks, the? We are meeting after 2 weeks, right?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, because last Saturday was poor. Anyway, can you tell me what I did last time? Nobody remember?
Ma'am, you did Gestalt psychology and also memory. There are three major
Yeah,
processes.
that also I finished discussion, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What about forgetting?
No,
No,
I
that is
did
the small part. Yeah. Stage model of memory referring to the three stages I
Yeah,
discussed, right?
yeah,
Okay.
encoding storage. Yeah, that part you discussed, ma'am.
Right. Very good. Thank you for your kind of response.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
right. Okay. You're Nilakshi, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you teach, Nilakshi?
Okay, International School, ma'am.
Where is it? I have heard of this place.
The main branch is in Vattala, and
Uh-huh.
there with the Vattala main school, there are 5 branches, and I'm
Uh,
working in Kandana branch.
I see. Okay. Right. Okay. Good, good, good. Then what do you teach?
I'm a grade 5 teacher, and I teach science and maths.
Okay. Right. Good. That is Nilakshi, na? Yes,
Yes.
Nilakshi. Okay. Then I have to actually do a small part in the unit cognition, and then I have to start the unit learning. Okay. That is the outline for the day. Let me open my PowerPoint once again and talk to you. Right. PowerPoint and talk to you about the cognitive processes, uh, sensation, perception, and then memory, and then forgetting. Because if you know why we forget, and if you know how to minimize forgetting, that is really helpful for you as a teacher and as a student as well when it comes to your own learning. But you can easily facilitate the learning process by minimizing the forgetting, right? As you know why we forget. Okay. So the PowerPoint. All right. Okay. And I'm sharing the PowerPoint to talk about. mm, Right. Cognition. And we actually discuss cognition and the cognitive process, sensation, perception, gestalt laws, and memory. And now I'm getting you to look at. Um, did I discuss the types of memories in the long-term memory? Nilakshi?
Um,
I
yes,
don't think. Yes, the procedural memory, the semantic memory, and the episodic memory I
no,
discussed, right?
no, ma'am, no, no.
No,
Short,
right.
yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
not that.
And I stopped at the fact that you have to store information in the long-term memory as you store information in a library systematically and semantically coded. I discussed that part, no?
Mm, no.
Yes, most probably I finished 9 years. Long-term memory, the capacity is unlimited, duration
Yes,
is
yeah,
infinite, and
yes.
make sure that you store information in the long-term memory as you store information in a library. Now, you go to the world's largest library in Qatar. If you want to retrieve a book, it's a matter of a click because why? It's systematically stored. But if you look at your own desk in the room, there are about 20-25 books on the table, and your friends wants you to bring a book last week's lecture note. You can't retrieve it. Why? It is not systematically stored. Am I right? Yes. So systematic storing, semantically coded. Semantically coded means you know the meaning of it. Without knowing the meaning, without understanding it, you just buy at something. You think that you actually stored it in the long-term memory. No, you can't retrieve it. You get stuck. It has happened to me also. I very well remember when I was reading for my first degree in historical linguistics, something that I couldn't understand at all. Historical linguistics professor Ananda did it. I could not understand. It's my fault, not his fault. It was Greek to me. And For the exam purpose, I started by hearting, rote learn without knowing what it is. And when I went for the exam, I wanted to recall. I couldn't retrieve any of the information stored. Why? I know I did not actually semantically coded the information. I did not semantically coded the information. Without understanding, I just wanted to actually memorize it. Okay. So semantically coded, systematically stored information can only be retrieved. Systematically කොහොමද store කරන්නේ? You have to actually study systematically. You should know the big topic, subtopics, what is discussed under each topic, like that. It's not then and there you see something and read. That, of course, is not systematic storing. So when you actually teach also, you always have to make sure that your students know what you're doing. Systematic storage can be facilitated, right? You see, I'm doing unit 4. Yesterday I did this one. And today I'm actually doing this part. And what I did yesterday is recalled today. And tomorrow, this is what I'm going to cover in this unit. Like that, you have to show them the big pictures, connectedness, and all that. Then they will actually easily, it is systematically stored and they can easily retrieve. So you can ask them to do the summaries, notes, short notes. That is actually getting them to be systematic in the storage. Okay. So one more thing about the long-term memory. Long-term memory takes in 3 types of memory information. If not, you can say long-term memory has 3 types of memories in the long-term memory. First is the semantic memory. Semantic memory is knowledge related. What are the 4 stages of Piaget's cognitive development? What is the highest mountain in Sri Lanka? Right? What is the capital of Sri Lanka? Like that, all this knowledge related information is stored in the semantic memory. Okay. And then you have episodic memory. Episodic memory refers to life events. Episodic memory refers to life events, episodes in your life, birthdays, Christmas festival, how you celebrated your 30th birthday, life event, when you got married. They are life episodes, life related. When you met your friend, when did you meet your friend, like that. They're life event related. They are stored in the episode. And then you have processed means now how to ride a bicycle. How to ride a bicycle is stored in the procedural memory. How to ride a bicycle. It is stored in the procedural memory because it is a skill. How to make a dal curry. It's a skill. So it is actually stored in the procedural memory. Driving. You don't have to write. Now, what is the difference? Semantic memory, knowledge related. Procedural memory, skill related. Episodic memory, life event related. Now I'm asking, consciously you have committed memories into the long-term memory. Conscious efforts taken to actually commit it to the memory. They are knowledge, semantic memory, or episodic memory, or procedural memory. Very consciously you take efforts to commit it to the memory. What kind of memory? Semantic, procedural, or episodic? ඕන කමින්ම long memory එකට දාන්නේ. semantic memories, the episodic memories, the procedural memories. ඕන කමින්ම දාන්න.
Semantic memory.
Semantic memory. Diana, you're correct. We by heart, we repeat, and we want to commit it to the memory, semantic memories. Then procedural memories or episodic. Episodic කිව්වම what did you have for your dinner last night? Away to the market today. They are life events. They are episodic memories. And then you have procedural memories, skills, how to do something. Where they can cook the owner coming over to that. Procedural or episodic?
Procedure memory.
Procedural memory.
Yeah, procedural memory. You're correct. And the least conscious efforts taken to commit memories into the episodic memory. Very good. Now, retrieval. Which is the easiest to retrieve? Semantic, procedural, or episodic?
Episodic memory.
Very good, because it's actually voluntary. You don't have to think much. Now, when you actually, because it's to practice. Now, when you want to actually make a dal curry, you don't have to think, "Ah, I have to wash dal. Then I have to add this. And then I have to actually put it on the hearth or the burner. I have to actually add coconut oil," like that. You're not going to think and do. It is actually just a procedure for you. So it's very easy to retrieve. And then out of semantic and episodic, which is easier?
Procedural memory.
Procedural memory already gone. It's the easiest. Out of semantic and episodic.
Episodic.
No. No. Why? It's not consciously committed, Puta. Now, what did you have for your dinner 2 days back? Now, on your way to the market, who did you meet? You meet a lot of people. You don't actually commit it to the memory. Am I right?
Yes.
Consciously. Because of that, it is the hardest to retrieve. Semantic memory, as you actually consciously commit, you can easily retrieve it. කටපාඩම් කරනවා, ඒක retrieve කරනවා. Conscious efforts taken. But for episodic, conscious efforts not taken, so the retrieval is difficult. That is it. And with that, we go to strategies to improve memory, enhance recall, and increase retention of information. Strategies. They are very simple ones. You can use them in your own classes as well. Focus the attention on the materials you are studying. Avoid cramming by establishing regular study sessions. So your students should not cram for the exam. Instead, you have to give them weekly tests, monthly tests, classroom activities. They study and come. So you're getting them to study on regular basis. Okay? Structure and organize the information you're studying. So when you have to show the big picture, so take one by one, and then they will actually structure and organize their own learning as well. So you have to train them in that. Utilize mnemonic devices to remember information. So to keep the directions in mind in Sinhala, you have that mnemonic, right? Now, Sigmund Freud, the 5 stages, oral, anal, phallic, latent, and genitals. Old age pensioners like grapes. So like their mnemonics, okay? Elaborate and rehearse the information you are studying. Elaborate and rehearse. Practice, practice, practice. restate new information to things you already know. That means associate. associate You have to create retrieval cues. You have to create retrieval cues. When I was studying for my degrees and all that, if it is a quote, I always highlighted in yellow. If it is an important point, I always highlighted in pink. So that is a retrieval cue for me. So when I want to recall that information, I first think of the color. It should be in pink. And then, of course, I get to the information because it's like that. So always associate the new information with something that you already know. Visualize concepts to improve memory and recall. Visualize. So transfer of information, mapping, drawing, they are very useful for your students. When you ask them to read the passage and transfer this information into a grid, this is visualization. Okay, draw it. It's visualization and it supports memory. Teach new concepts to another one. Actually, we know Dale's last time, am I right? In the May, you only come for educational technology tomorrow, or it's a different batch. Are you the ones coming for tomorrow's 7:30 class for educational technology? It's a different class.
I'm
I'm coming.
So we discussed Dale's cone of learning. So when you say something, do it and say, you remember it more, right? So get the students to do it and say, and they will remember it more. So these are some strategies for the memory improvement. So now we come to the last part of our cognition, forgetting. It's very useful for you as teachers, so if you know your students forget why, you can actually take measures to actually stop it happening. Train them in some strategies to keep information longer. So because of that, we are going to discuss forgetting in a very small way. According to Ebbinghaus, you can see the name on the screen. According to Ebbinghaus, the psychologist, who has done lots of research on forgetting and why we forget, he actually proposed this forgetting curve, and it is referred to as Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. So in this research, he actually says forgetting can be connected with time. Forgetting can be connected with time. So he actually proposed this forgetting curve. You can see the forgetting or say remembering and time. The relationship between forgetting or remembering with time. So this curve, you look at this, the y-axis from head to toe, it is remembering of information. And if you take the x-axis from left to right, it is time spanning over 31 days. Spanning over 31 days. So according to Ebbinghaus curve, you can see once information is learned, when you teach your students something, in 30 minutes, they remember only 60% of what you have taught them. Only 60% of knowledge, information you taught them is remembered. 40% is lost in the first 30 minutes. 40% is lost in the first 30 minutes of teaching and learning. If you take 1 hour, after 1 hour of teaching and learning, they remember they have saved only 45% of what they learned. 55% of what they have learned is lost or forgotten. If you take one day, at the end of a day, one day, they remember only 35%. So 65% is lost, forgotten. After 2 days, it's 30% that they remember. 6 days, a week's time, it's 30, almost 31 again. Then 31 days, again, it's 30%. So you can see after second day, there is actually little is lost or forgotten. You can keep it. But as soon as it's learned, you actually tend to forget or lose lots of information according to this Ebbinger's curve. Am I right? So if so, what can you do? If so, what can you do? You can, as soon as something is taught, you know they are forgetting. You know it's forgotten by the students. In the first 30 minutes, lot is forgotten. 1 hour, another lot is forgotten. At the end of the day, another lot is forgotten. So to minimize forgetting, you have to give them a lot of rehearse activities. Practice, 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 rehearse. Then they don't forget. Otherwise, there's a tendency of losing lots of information. In 30 minutes, 40% of information is lost. So if you actually, once you teach something, give them immediately after teaching them, give them some practice activities that can be minimized. So at the end of the day, you give them homework, then they are supposed to actually dabble with what you have taught them, and you're going to minimize forgetting. And schools give them weekly tests because you get them to study during the week, right? Then they actually don't forget easily. And then the schools have monthly tests. Then at the end of the month, they study what they have done in the whole month. So they don't actually forget because rehearse is there, constant rehearse is there. When you study also, as soon as something is learned, it is rehearsed practice. At the end of the day, after finishing the lecture, you study. After a week that you study, and at the end of the month, you study. And then it is actually very systematically stored in the long-term memory. You can easily retrieve. Is it clear or it's not clear, dear? No. Is it clear or it's not clear? Are you not connected? Am I not connected or what? Please tell me you understand. Or you don't understand. What has happened to you? Not responding. Hmm?
Yes, madam. Understood.
Okay, good. Shaka. Then we go to Elizabeth Loftus. Elizabeth Loftus is another psychologist who has done lots of experiments on forgetting. And according to Elizabeth Loftus, there are 4 major reasons for forgetting. Right? There are 4 major reasons for forgetting. So as teachers, if you know why your students forget, you can actually facilitate and minimize, facilitate remembering and minimize forgetting. So for that, we are looking at what Elizabeth Loftus has said about forgetting. According to Elizabeth Loftus, there are 4 reasons for forgetting: retrieval failure, interference, failure to store, motivated forgetting. So these are the 4 reasons for forgetting as said by Elizabeth Loftus. We will take one by one. Retrieval failure. You all know retrieval from the long-term memory is a failure. You're unable to do that because they are not systematically and stored and semantically coded. The information is not systematically stored and semantically coded. Then you can't retrieve information from the long-term memory. That is termed as retrieval failure. But Karunakala Kyana, do you understand what I'm telling?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes,
So you already
ma'am.
know it. When discussing memory, we discussed that. If information is not semantically coded, systematically stored, it's difficult. You can't retrieve that information from the long-term memory. So Elizabeth Loftus also says the same. It is referred to as retrieval failure. Then second reason, interference. Interference, according to Elizabeth Loftus, we forget because of interference. Interference is the new information cannot be taken to the memory because the old memories interfere with the new memories. New information cannot be stored because old memories interfere. I will give you an example. Now, when you are in primary, you teach your students past tense form of the verb is formed by adding ed here. That's when you in the primary. And then when you come to secondary school, then the teachers introduce the irregular verbs. There the past tense is formed by not adding ed. There are 5 other ways. Am I right? Am I right? Yes or no? But උත්තර දෙන්නේ නෑනේ අනේ මට බෑ උත්තර දෙන්න තියටු ගන්නන්න. Then what happened? Your students start writing eat, eated, go, good, because they are old memory that the past tense is formed by adding ed interferes with the new information. So that is called interference. Is it understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, madam.
Then go to failure to store. You know why failure to store happens? Failure to store, you have to store in the long-term memory if you want to actually keep it, retain it, and retrieve it. But you know, in the short-term memory itself, without passing the information into the long-term memory, they are lost, they are forgotten. Because the short-term memory has limited capacity, right? And limited duration. So within the 20 to 30 seconds, if it is not rehearsed, right, they are not sent to the long-term memory. And at the same time, please be mindful about your background noise. I can hear your husband singing a lullaby. What's this, man? Right. And then you know, failure to store. Then you know, if there are lots of information sent to the long-term memory, the long-term memory can't accommodate because it has the capacity of magic number 7. Then you know the information is lost in the long-term memory, short-term memory, without sending it to the long-term memory. So they are termed as failure to store. Hope understood. And then motivated forgetting. Motivated forgetting is actually, we actually learned about Sigmund Freud and the unconscious mind. Okay. So Sigmund Freud's unconscious mind related something here, motivated forgetting. I will explain it in a simple manner. When the experiences or the information is too much, very sensitive, It's actually very difficult to accept. So we have a defense mechanism in us. We tend to forget them. For us to deal with it is difficult. And it's a defense mechanism in our body. This is actually related to the unconscious mind defense mechanisms. Okay. So now there are research on child abuse. When you ask them, they can't remember anything. They've forgotten it. Why? It's too much. It's traumatizing. So they have a defense mechanism to deal with it. So their defense mechanism is motivated forgetting. They have forgotten about it. Right? One of the examples is this child abuse. Right? It's motivated forgetting. And it is less applicable in the education setup. But I know I can give you one example from education setup as well. And there is a teacher who is very rude to a particular child for some reason. And the child tends to actually forget everything that teacher teaches. Because learning from that teacher is a traumatic experience for this teenage child in grade 9. Okay? And this child can't learn. Everything is forgotten because it's a traumatic experience being in the class for the child. It's actually a defense mechanism when the situations are intense. Okay? So according to Elizabeth Loftus, these are the 4 reasons for forgetting. So how can you make use of this as an implication for you? Make sure that you actually get them to store information in the long-term memory systematically and meaningfully, semantically coded. Make sure that if they have learned something different and you are introducing new information and you should know, there will be the old information interfering with taking in the new information. So I have to take conscious efforts. The same example, if you know that you're teaching the irregular verbs past tense, so you have to make sure that you have to tell them you have learned about regular verbs. So the regular verbs is ed. But now this is not regular verbs, this is irregular verbs, and you circle it, underline it. So the irregular verbs don't take the ed. You have to make it very specific and prominent for them, obvious for them, and highlight it to minimize interference. Failure to store. Then you have to actually make sure you are giving them little information at a time and give them adequate practice and get them to store it in the long-term memory. Otherwise, they will fail to store that information. And motivated forgetting, the implication for you is make the learning experience a kind of a beautiful experience for them. Don't make it stressful. Don't make it traumatizing. Okay, that is it. With that, we come to the end of our discussion, cognition, right? In this unit, cognition, we discuss what cognition is by looking at some definitions, right? And then we discuss the first process of cognition, sensation and perception. And then we looked at Gestalt laws of perception. Then we looked at the stage model of memory to see how memory works. And then today we discuss forgetting by looking at Ebbinger's curve, remembering and time, the connection between the two and the implications for the teacher. And Elizabeth Loftus' 4 reasons of forgetting and implications for the teacher. Am I right, or am I okay, or you understood or you did not understand? Before moving on to the new topic, what is it?
Yes, ma'am.
There are about how many? There are about 15 students. but only one or two speak, the others keep quiet. Why is that? Don't you understand? Please give me feedback. If so, I have to make sure that I simplify, I have to go slow or do something. Why are you silent? Is it because the subject matter is difficult and you don't understand, or you are actually comfortable being quiet? What it is? What is it?
My background is noisy, ma'am.
I have a yes,
I have
Jennifer.
a kid noise. My background is
Ah,
noisy. That's what, madam.
right, right.
That is
Kids
better.
at home.
Yes, madam.
How
6 month
many?
old baby. One baby, madam. Sorry, madam.
Crying, crying. Ah, I can hear. I can hear the little one. But you are managing to join also. No, it's good, Jennifer. I understand. Others? Is there any difficulty in what we learned? Hello.
No, madam.
You study on regular basis?
The
Did you
ones that
study?
we have learned so far, I have studied.
Uh-huh. Yeah, then it's good. Okay, otherwise it's too much for you. At the end of the day, if you start cramming, nothing will actually work for you. Okay. So because of that regular basis, do some work. It helps you to pass exams with flying colors, good grades, and at the same time, it helps you to develop your study skills. So you can actually get into higher studies and post grads and all these if you develop your study skills, right? And it makes you actually very happy. It will give you satisfaction. At the end of the day, you get a certificate without improving your knowledge and attitudes and skills. What's the point? When you get your certificate in hand, you should feel that I have developed my knowledge, I have developed my skills, I have developed my attitudes, I have developed my study skills, metacognition, all this. Then only that you can be happy and satisfied. For it to happen, you need to study on regular basis. Okay, a word of advice I always give you, because you all are educators, you all are teachers, lecturers. So you all are actually very important set. If you don't do right, the whole country goes down. Okay, so you have to develop right kind of knowledge, attitudes, and skills. Even though we meet online, that I really want to see that you all are improving in your skills, attitudes, and all that. Not that you study, cram for exams, and get a pass and get the certificate and wash your hands off. No, right? That is it. Okay. Then we have discussed, we have done 4 units. The first unit is the introduction to psychology. Second, we did lifespan development psychology. It's a very lengthy unit. We discussed Piaget, Freud, Erik Erikson, Bronfenbrenner, Kohlberg, etc. And then after that, we did cognition, right? So we completed 3 units. Am I right?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Now the 4th unit. Okay, 4th topic, big topic 4. The big topic 4. The big topic 4 is learning. Very important for you. Am I right? Yes. Because you all are teachers, you all are facilitating learning. So it's very important. So our next topic is learning. Right. Let me share my PowerPoints with you first. Okay.
Madam, excuse me, I have a
Yes.
small doubt.
Yes, dear.
Uh, Through LMS, we downloaded the material for psychology. In that particular material, unit 1 is educational psychology. That is okay, we have learned. And the second one also, no problem, developmental stages.
Yeah.
The third topic is creativity and intelligence. These are the notes for the first semester, no,
I
madam.
didn't do creativity and
Then
intelligence with you.
according, no, but
I
in the
didn't do.
notes they have given the third unit is creativity and intelligence. Are we going to do it in future? Oh, what's that, madam?
That means the course descriptor is uploaded there.
Yeah, at LMS, the first semester notes is uploaded.
Notes means my lecture notes or the course descriptors.
Course descriptors.
That actually intelligence can come later on in the kind of some other as the last unit of the program. Okay, I am not following the exact course descriptor. I have my own
Okay.
way of organizing for the convenience, right?
Right,
So
okay.
now the course descriptor, can you actually drop it into the chat box? Because I want to see whether what I'm doing is the same thing as you talking about, Kayla.
Right, okay.
Can you drop it into the chat box, the course descriptor you're talking about?
Yeah, right, okay, madam.
Yeah. Do you have this cognition as one separate unit there?
We
Please,
have only three units in first semester. First one is educational psychology. Second one is developmental stages. And third one is creativity and intelligence.
no, they are modules. No? They are modules, no.
Okay, madam.
They are separate modules now. I'm doing educational psychology for you. In the educational psychology module, these are the topics to be covered. Am I right? Otherwise, it cannot be the first semester, second semester, no. Educational psychology comes in only in one semester. What you're telling me is not very clear to me now. Can you actually share it
How
in
many
the chat
topics
box?
are there?
There are about 7 topics.
Okay.
Okay, madam. I'll check it and let you know it again.
Yeah, okay. Who spoke actually? Who spoke just a while ago about this?
Shapra, madam.
Shapra. Shapra, please come back to me, okay?
Okay, madam.
What you're telling is not very clear to me. That is why. If you're referring to any note or anything, you can drop me a message. When do we have the exams, madam? After the, what is it? Yeah, all these exam matters and everything, Jennifer, you need to talk to the campus, not to me. They only actually schedule dates and everything. I will be covering my lectures and whether they are doing it at the end of the completion of the module or all the modules are covered at the end of the semester. That actually is decided by the campus. Okay? Right. Yes. Then let me open my PowerPoint on learning. Okay. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm locating my PowerPoint. Okay. Right. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. No worries. Right. So then found it. I'm putting it here. Right. Now our next unit is actually unit 4. It's learning. So learning is very important for the teachers. Why? Because you teach for your students to learn. So they are like the two sides of the same coin. If the teacher knows how learning happens, you can make your teaching effective. Am I right? Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So because of that, this is going to be very helpful for you. So in this unit, we are going to look at how different theories talk about how learning happens. Okay. So then different theories focusing on different aspect of learning. And you're going to know everything and you're going to go eclectic. ECLECTIC. You're going to go eclectic. What does it mean by going to go eclectic is you're not going to be slave to one of the theories and say I'm actually this. Instead, what is said in one theory, what is said in another theory, what is said in the theory C and D, you're going to actually know what it is, the elements of it, and combine and draw some elements and do your teaching by mixing it up as it is most suitable for your own students. That is an eclectic teacher. Eclectic, ECLECTIC. Okay. So that's the purpose. Then different theories talk about different aspects of learning. And you know it when it comes to your own teaching and learning, depending on the class, the level of the student, size of the class, and the difficulty level of the material, and all that you decide how you are going to actually do your teaching. It's not adhering to only one type of theory, but you're drawing one element from this and another element from another theory and combine them and go eclectic. That is the modern teacher, eclectic. Okay. So under learning, we are going to look at this. First, we are looking at what is learning, Kiala. What is learning? Then we have theories of learning. These theories discuss how learning happens, focusing on different aspects of learning. Okay. So we have 5 theories of learning to be discussed in this unit. Classical conditioning, operant conditioning, socio-cultural theory of learning, information processing theory of learning, social learning theory. So lots of theories. But if you are interested, it's easily grasped. Okay. So this is the outline of the unit. Got it?
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if I ask you, what is learning? Or define learning, if I ask you, what do you say?
Acquire and retain the knowledge.
Very good. Acquiring and retaining knowledge and information. It's learning. I don't say it's wrong. Yes, you're correct. Others?
Understanding through experiences.
Now, understanding through experiences. Right. Okay. I don't say you're wrong. You're correct. Yes. Others? Others, please. What is learning? Only 2 people interact. The others are sleeping. No, not everyone.
Gaining new knowledge and experience so as to
Mm.
make use in practical situations.
Right. Okay. You say that you gain knowledge, experience, and you need to actually use them in problem solving, creativity, imagination, innovations, etc. Am I right? Problem solving
Yes.
can yeah, right. Correct. That is also correct. Others? So what you all said is correct. That is what learning is about. But when it comes to look at education through the lens of psychology, right? What Woolfolk said. You can see the name Woolfolk 2004. What Woolfolk said is very important. Learning is the process of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, behavior, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences. Process of acquiring new understanding of knowledge, behavior, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences. But still, Woolfolk says, according to Woolfolk 2004, learning is something that is very difficult to define. Learning is something that is very difficult to define. Learning is something that is very difficult to define because it's very broad. You can look at learning in very many angles, very many ways, focusing on different aspects. So it's very difficult to actually give the definition of learning. So because of that, Woolfolk says, if you really want to understand what learning is all about, Woolfolk, if you really want to understand what learning is all about, look at what learning is not about. NOT not. Discuss, look at what learning is not about. Then you come to know what learning is all about. That is Woolfolk. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what are those knots that Woolfolk talks about? Knots of knots, right? What learning is not about, NOT. 4 knots, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. So when you look at what learning is not about, you come to a better understanding of what learning is all about. That is what Woolfolk. So I'm going to for knowledge. We learn not only knowledge. We learn not only knowledge. That is what Woolfolk has said. The not one. We learn not only knowledge. Indirectly suggesting, we learn attitudes, skills, behaviors, temperaments, etc. So you are taken to a broader understanding of what learning is about by looking at the knots. The first knot is we learn not only knowledge. So indirectly you're suggested that we learn skills, attitudes, behaviors, preferences, etc. Okay? Second knot, knot 2. We learn not only right things. We learn not only right things. Then indirectly you're suggested that we learn wrong things as well. We learn wrong things as well. The knot 3, the third knot. Learning is not always intentional. Learning is always intentional. And I indirectly suggesting that we learn unintentionally as well. Without efforts, without purpose, without taking conscious efforts, we learn. We learn unconsciously as well. Fourth not. Fourth not four. Learning happens not only in the classroom. Learning happens not only in the classroom. Now, indirectly suggesting that learning happens everywhere else as well. Outside the classroom, in the playground, at home, in the neighborhood, play activities, all these are opportunities for learning. It actually goes beyond classroom as well. So these are the four nots. So I give you 1 minute for you to reflect on this definition of what learning is about by looking at the four nots said by Woolfolk. I give you 2 minutes to reflect on that. Right. Okay. Do you understand this definition
Yes,
given
ma'am.
by Woolfolk? Right. Okay. The four nots? Yes. Then we actually straight away move on to the theories of um, learning. And first, we are looking at two theories of learning. One is classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov. Sorry. The other one is operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner. Right? I have taken the two together because both the theories of learning comes from behavioral school of thought. Now I'm taking you to the first session, the introduction to psychology. In the introduction to psychology, I introduced how many major schools of thought. How many major schools of thought?
4, ma'am.
Four, right. In the first one is behaviorism. Okay. According to behaviorist, you study the mind through the observable behavior. Right? Our behavior is, according to behaviorism, our interaction and our response to our environment. Our environment is everything not within us. And I am your environment. Apex Campus is your environment. Sri Lanka is your environment. Your neighbors are your environment. Your family members are your environment. So we respond, we behave like this as we are responding to our environment. That is the belief of behaviorism. Okay? And when it comes to behaviorists, learning is more or less habit formation. You can make your own notes, right? Learning is more or less habit formation. How do you form habits? Do it repeatedly. How do you form habits? Do it repeatedly. By doing it repeatedly, you form habits. By doing it repeatedly, you form habits. And according to behaviorists, learning is more or less habit formation. So it is common to both classical conditioning and operant conditioning because they both are from behavioral school of thought. So common assumptions are our learning is our response to our environment and how we interact with it. And learning is habit formation through repetition. So it's common to both classical conditioning and operant conditioning because they come from behavioral school of thought. Is it clear? Is it clear? If it is not clear, you can tell me, I can repeat.
Madam, please repeat it, madam.
Okay. Now, I'm talking about two theories from behavioral school of thought. So on the very first day, in the first session, we discuss schools of thoughts, four major schools of thoughts in psychology. There are others as well, but we discuss four major schools of thoughts in psychology, Gurukula. And one of them is behaviorism. Okay. So they are a separate gang of psychologists, behaviorists. Okay. Give me a second. Right, okay. So then behavioral school of thought, according to behaviorists, we are responding to our environment, everything not within us. And we are dealing with them, we are interacting with them, and we are responding to it. So similarly, when it comes to learning theories from behavioral school of thought, learning is the behavior. Learning is the behavior. So we learn as we are responding to our interacting with our environment. So another assumption is learning is habit formation. You make it a habit. That is how learning happens. You call it simple learning because all type of learning can't happen only through repetition, right? It's limited aspects of learning can happen only through repetition. But we learn, especially when we are young, right? Through habit formation. How do you form the habit? By repeating it, by repeating it. Okay, is it clear?
Okay, madam.
So then, they are common to both classical and operant. Learning is learning happens because of our interaction with the environment. Learning is more or less habit formation through repetition. So those are common assumptions applied to both classical conditioning and operant conditioning from the behavioral school of thought. Okay. Now we'll take the first one, classical conditioning. Classical conditioning. Give me a minute. Okay, give me a minute. Don't leave. Okay, now, I'm in classical conditioning now. So what do you know already about classical conditioning? Classical conditioning is proposed by, yeah? Hello? Right. Classical conditioning is proposed by Ivan Pavlov. He is a behaviorist. He belongs to the behaviorist school of thought. Because of that, learning is habit formation. Through repeated activities, the students learn habits and it is termed as learning, right? So according to classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov, we are going to see how learning happens, right? As said in this theory of classical conditioning. So before actually explaining this theory, I want to tell you a story. We call it dog story. Actually, it's an experiment conducted by Ivan Pavlov using dogs. That is the very nature of behaviorists. They use animals to conduct research, studies, and they generalize the findings to human beings, which is criticized by other schools of thought, right? Anyway, what is this dog story in classical conditioning? What is this dog story in classical conditioning? Okay. First, listen to the story. Ivan Pavlov is a Russian physiologist and not a psychologist initially, a physiologist, because psychology branched out from physiology and philosophy now. So naturally, these physiologists also into psychology. Okay. So Ivan Pavlov, being a Russian physiologist, he was experimenting some salivation process of dogs, something to do with the physiology of dogs, right? He was experimenting. And, for this purpose of the study, he had to cage the dogs in a kennel. He had to cage the dogs in a kennel for the experiment purpose. And he was measuring the amount of saliva. He was measuring the amount of saliva, right? Are you listening?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. He was actually experimenting with the salivation process of the dogs, being a physiologist. And to do this experiment, he had to cage dogs. And to get the dogs to the kennel door, he always used a bell. He sounded the bell to get the dogs to the kennel door, right? And to give food also, he had to sound the bell. He had to sound the bell. He had to ring the bell. To give medicine also, he had to ring the bell. For whatever purpose, to give it a bath also, the dogs to get to the kennel door, he had to ring the bell. Okay, now, this is what he saw. For the ring, he was actually experimenting on the salivation process. No? So, when the dogs were given food, what do you think of the amount of saliva? The dogs given food. What do you think about the amount of saliva? More or less?
More saliva.
More.
More saliva.
Yeah, it's more. Why? It is a natural thing. Now, what is your favorite food? And you get the smell of that favorite food, what happens? Mouth watering, right? That is there. So it's actually natural process. So when the dogs offered food, amount of saliva was more high. It's the natural one, right? And then when you sound the bell, do the dogs salivate? No. There's nothing like that. Just because of the doorbell ringing of the doorbell, do we salivate as we actually salivate to the food smell? No. So for the sound of the bell, the dogs did not salivate initially. But after 3-4 months, Ivan Pavlov saw when the ring was sounded, bell was rung, the dog salivated. The dog salivated. A considerable amount of salivation was there. He started thinking, how did it happen? How did it happen? Now, initially, for the sound of the bell, dogs did not salivate. Now, to the sound of the bell, the amount of saliva is very high. How did it happen? He started wondering. And then his conclusion was, by getting this repeatedly done, is okay. Now, after some time, you can see the dogs salivating to the sound of the bell. How come? Because he learned that over a period of time, repeatedly, to give food, he rang the bell. So in this instance, the food and the bell, they were combined, they were bonded, they were associated. To give food, he sounded the bell. So the bell and the food combined, associated for some time, repeatedly. Right? Then what happened? Even though not to give food, just to get the dogs to the kennel door, he rang bell, and there is a considerable amount of salivation for the sound of the bell. So there is new learning then. What is the new learning there? Dogs initially did not salivate to the sound of the bell. But after 3 months, you can see dogs have learned new learning to salivate to the sound of the bell. So Ivan Pavlov saw there is new learning happens in the dogs. How did it happen? And we are going to discuss how did it happen. We are going to now is the dog story clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now let's see how did this new learning happen as per classical conditioning. Now you have to look at these acronyms for that. Look at these acronyms. The acronyms are not there, but you can look at this picture. You have to actually use these terms in order to talk about how learning happens in classical conditioning. Okay. Now, dog is given food. And naturally, the dog salivate. It's there in them. It's not something that they learn new, it's there. So the terms used Okay. Is the PowerPoint shared or it's not shared anymore?
It's not shared, ma'am.
Yeah, there was a kind of a connection issue, no? So I lost the connection for a while. Okay, I'm sharing it again. Right. Okay. Now you can see. So that is natural. Dogs did not learn it. It is naturally happening. So unconditioned. Condition can learn. You're made to do that. Right? You're conditioned to think like that. Women is conditioned to think that you have to do all the household chores. You're made to think like that. So you have learned it. So the unconditioned it's not learned, it's natural. So natural stimulus or the unconditioned stimulus is the food. And natural response or the unconditioned response is salivating to the food. Okay, it's there. And then NS, neutral stimulus. If you take no response, no salivation. So bell is the neutral stimulus because to the sound of the bell, dogs don't salivate. So the bell, sound of the bell is the neutral stimulus, no salivation. And then for some time, repeatedly, the unconditioned stimulus, the food, and neutral stimulus, the bell. These are paired up, these are associated, these are bonded for some time in this experiment, to get the kennel door, to get the dogs to the kennel door to give food. The bell was sounded. So the bell and the food was associated, bonded, paired up for some time. Okay, associated. And then what happened? There's new learning. New learning is conditioned response and stimulus. You're made to learn it. You're conditioned to learn it. You're made to think that women should do all the household chores. Right? So that is a conditioned thinking or learning. So what happened? Now, after repeatedly offering food with the bell sound, the dogs actually started salivating to the sound of the bell. Initially, they did not salivate to the sound of the bell. It was neutral stimulus. But after repeatedly bonding, associating the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus, naturally occurring stimulus, what happened? What happened? The dog started to salivate just for the sound of the bell, even the food is not of. Hearing the bell, the dog salivated. How did it happen? This is how it happened. So dog salivating to the sound of the bell is the new learning. New learning is termed as conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. The conditioned stimulus is the bell sound. Conditioned response is the student's liking to the bell sound. Okay? That is conditioned. Initially, it was neutral, no response. But later on, you made them to learn to salivate to the sound of the bell. So new learning. එකට අපි කියනවා conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. Okay. Now I want to give you this explanation. In this dog's experiment, what is the unconditioned stimulus? Natural stimulus or unconditioned stimulus? I'm checking your understanding. Unconditioned stimulus, what is it in this experiment? Am I connected? Are you listening? Why are you not responding? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
I ask you a question. The question is, what is the unconditioned stimulus or the natural stimulus in this study? Look at the picture and tell, will you go? On these slides, you can see that if you did not understand.
Natural stimulus is the food.
Food. What is the natural response? Unconditioned
Salivating.
response, salivating to the food. Okay. And what is the neutral stimulus? No salivation.
Ringing of the bell.
Bell. Okay. So what is the conditioned stimulus and conditioned response? That is new learning. Conditioned stimulus, learned one, new learning, the bell sound. And salivating to the bell sound is the conditioned response. So there is new learning that has happened. How did this new learning happen? Very simple. The neutral stimulus is bonded with the unconditioned stimulus as it's in the third cage. The neutral stimulus bell is associated, bonded, or paired up with the unconditioned stimulus repeatedly for some time. Then what happened? Even without the food, the bell was sounded, dog started salivating. So the initially neutral stimulus is now transformed into a conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. Condition means learned. Conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. Okay. Hello, I was talking to you. Am I connected?
Now,
madam.
No, ma'am. No,
yeah.
no. Ma'am, we didn't hear you so
Yeah.
far.
So how long it has been like that?
It's like 3 minutes, 3 to
All
4
right,
minutes.
okay. I was actually wondering why you're not actually talking. I was talking, talking, and I was muted. It just happened. I don't know. So it's only 3 minutes now. I gave you a classroom example. Were you listening?
No,
So,
ma'am.
right.
No, ma'am.
Now I'm starting with a classroom example, okay, of classical conditioning. Now, in your class, you have a student who doesn't take interest in your work, right? In your class, you have a student who doesn't take interest in your work. So you can take it as what? Unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, neutral stimulus, or conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. What can you refer to it as? A student takes no interest in your work.
Unconditioned response.
එහෙමනම් naturally occurring වෙන්න ඕනේ. response එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. මෙතන response එකක් නැහැ. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද? Neutral stimulus. Students show no liking. එහෙනම් your classroom teaching and learning activities, it's the neutral stimulus for that. For him, am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Then you want as the teacher to use classical conditioning and transform this neutral stimulus to a what? In the dog's experiment, the bell, the neutral stimulus is transformed into a conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. Learned one.
Madam, we can't hear you, madam.
So now you
Excuse me, ma'am, you are not audible.
the student.
Madam, we can't hear you, madam. Madam, we can't hear you.
Right. There was a connection loss. Am I audible? Right. Connection was lost for some time. Now it's back.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right now. Then now your student doesn't show any interest in your work. Neutral stimulus because no response, no liking. Okay. Then you want as a teacher to transform his neutral stimulus, no liking for the classroom activities, into a conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. The student, your classroom activities is the conditioned stimulus. The student's liking is the conditioned response. For it to happen, You have to actually bond, you have to associate, you have to pair up the neutral stimulus with what? The neutral stimulus with what? Think of the dog's experiment and you can tell. You can actually, you have to know the bell is paired up with the food. So, something unconditioned stimulus and unconditioned response. Unconditioned. Unconditioned කියන්නේ naturally occurring. ඒතර ඔයා බලන්න ඕනේ ඒ ළමයාගේ මගේ classroom activities neutral. දැන් ඔයාට ඕක ඕනේ ඉගෙන ඒක හරවන්න condition stimulus and condition response. එයා අලුතෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා ඒකට කැමති වෙන්න. එහෙනම් ඒක ඇති කරන්න classical conditioning if you are using, you have to pair up the neutral stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus. අර bell එකයි food එකයි වගේ. එහෙනම් you have to identify an unconditioned stimulus with regard to the child. So what does the child like naturally? You have to study the child. So you see, the child likes to work with his best friend all the time. The child likes to work with his best friend all the time. So unconditioned stimulus is the best friend. Unconditioned response is the child's liking to work with the best friend. Neutral stimulus is your activities, no response. Now you are going to combine the two, your activities with the best friend. So you get the child to do classroom activities always with the best friend for some time repeatedly. So the neutral stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus are paired up, repeatedly associated repeatedly for some time. Then after some time, even if the best friend is not there anymore, the child has started liking. Previously, neutral stimulus is now transformed into a conditioned stimulus and response. Conditioned stimulus is the activities you give. The students liking to do activities is the conditioned response. Is the classroom example clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, I will give you another example from actual island-wide research conducted by Faculty of Education, University of Colombo, long time back. It's a Sinhala medium professor, one Professor Roland Abepala. He has written books. They are available in bookshops also, but it is in Sinhala. Right? That Professor Roland Abepala conducted a large-scale research study. And in this research study, he used classical conditioning. Now you know in rural areas, in village schools, students don't like learning English. And it's a very common situation in Sri Lanka. And he took learning English as the neutral stimulus. Now he wanted to actually transform this neutral stimulus, learning English, into a conditioned stimulus and response, that is, student like learning English. Okay. So he wanted to use classical conditioning. Now he has to pair up the neutral stimulus, learning English, with the unconditioned stimulus and unconditioned response, naturally occurring liking. So he interviewed the teachers, observed the classrooms, talked to students, and learned the students like dancing, music, and drama very much. So dance, students liking for dancing, music, and drama is the unconditioned response. Neutral stimulus is English. English is paired up with dance, drama, and music. So repeatedly, over a period of 6 months, he made all the teachers, it's a actually big project, teach English using drama, music, and dance. They actually develop a curriculum for that. And it was implemented in rural schools. So for 6 months, English was taught using drama, music, and dance. So the neutral stimulus, English, unconditioned stimulus, music, drama, and dance. It's repeatedly done. Then after 6 months, students were taken back to typical, traditional, normal classrooms. No dance, no music, no, it's a typical classroom teaching of English. And the students actually they have started to like learning English, even though there's no drama or music. In the typical classroom also, they showed interest in learning English. That means previously neutral stimulus, English, is now transformed to a conditioned stimulus, and the response is they like learning English, even in the traditional classroom. This is an island-wide project conducted long time back using classical conditioning. Okay? Got it or you didn't get that? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, we got it.
All right. So now you come to these 3 terms. Okay? Now you come to these 3 terms. I will make it only 2. I will make it only 2. The last one I remove. Okay? Last one I remove. It's too much otherwise. Because you took a long time to understand or to respond. Because of that, I actually spontaneous recovery I removed. But these 2 are very important. The 2 terms in classical conditioning, acquisition and extinction. What are the 2 terms, dear?
Acquisition
And extinction. What is acquisition? Acquisition is transforming an neutral stimulus into, you can complete now. Acquisition is transforming neutral stimulus into a මම කැති තරක් කියලා තියෙනවා දැන්. Condition. No unconditioned නෙමෙයි.
Condition.
ඒක පත් කරගන්නේ මොකද? Condition. Learned කියන එකයි condition. Condition stimulus. How? By bonding, by associating, by pairing up the neutral stimulus with what?
Unconditioned stimulus.
Unconditioned stimulus. That is termed as acquisition in classical conditioning. Right? I repeat. What is acquisition in classical conditioning? A neutral stimulus is transformed into a what? Conditioned stimulus by associating, pairing up the neutral stimulus with unconditioned stimulus. If you do so, that is termed as acquisition. There is new learning happens through the bonding or through the association of neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus. Okay. So if you want to apply classical conditioning, that is what you're supposed to do. You identify neutral stimulus. You want to transform it to a conditioned stimulus. So you are going to associate, pair up the neutral stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus. You have to find an unconditioned stimulus and pair it up repeatedly for some time. Then the new learning or the conditioned stimulus and conditioned response will be there. Okay. What is extinction then? What is extinction? Extinction is, now there is no more pairing up. There's no more association. There is the new learning, the conditioned stimulus and the conditioned response. But there is a tendency, there is a possibility that after some time, there can be a gradual decrease and disappearance of the conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. Gradual decrease and disappearance of the conditioned stimulus and the conditioned response, the new learning, as there is no more pairing up or association. After some time, this gradual disappearance can happen. That is termed as extinction. For example, in the dog's experiment, as there is no more food paired up with the bell, the dogs might unlearn the salivation for the bell might disappear. Okay. And in the case of classroom example, the student doesn't like your classroom activities, but you pair him up with the best friend. And even when in the absence of the best friend and the students now like you're doing activities, but as there is no more best friend in the activities, after some time, he might start actually gradually disliking your activities once again. That is termed as extinction. In Roland Abepalas's experiment, no more dance, no more drama, no more singing. Traditional classroom teaching of English. Students actually form the new learning habit. They like English. But as there is no pairing up, after some time, they might actually start once again gradually disliking or losing interest in learning English. That can happen. That is termed as extinction. Now you have to stop extinction because new learning is there and you don't want it to disappear, right? Your student likes your activities now. You don't want it to disappear. So how can you actually stop it? We have a solution in operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner. The next learning theory we are going to do. Operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner. You have a solution to it. And even in the Roland Abepalas's experiment, he used operant conditioning to stop the gradual decrease and disappearance of that liking newly formed learning or their liking for English. So we are going to discuss operant conditioning next day with the other rest of the learning theories. I want to complete learning theories next week. So we have to discuss operant conditioning, Bandura's social learning, Vygotsky's socio-cultural learning, and Gagne's 9 events of instruction. All these learning theories will be discussed next day, starting with B.F. Skinner. Okay then.
Okay, madam.
Right. So I took a lot of time to explain classical conditioning because you were not responding to me from the other end.
Excuse me, ma'am, you didn't
yeah.
explain ninth slide.
What is the 9th slide, Putta? This one.
Yes.
This is, what's the number?
Previous one. No, ma'am. Previous one.
Same thing,
Which
no?
one?
It's the dog's
Okay, same thing.
experiment.
Okay.
Same
Okay,
thing.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before conditioning, during conditioning, and after conditioning.
Okay.
That is before conditioning, the neutral stimulus and no response. Like during conditioning, the pairing up of the unconditioned stimulus and the conditioned stimulus. And after conditioning, you can see the neutral stimulus is now transformed into a conditioned stimulus. Okay. The same thing.
Okay, ma'am.
Now I give you a homework. Leisurely think about a classroom example of classical conditioning, right? You can bring about new learning acquisition by transforming a neutral stimulus into a conditioned stimulus by pairing up the neutral stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus. So the teachers, you see neutral stimuluses. There is a student who doesn't actually come to school regular basis. So you want to transform it into a good one. You want it to be a conditioned stimulus and response. You want the student to come to school every day. So you have to pair up the neutral stimulus with unconditioned stimulus if you're a good teacher. So you will see what are unconditioned stimuluses with regard to that student. So you can see that student uh, uh, like uh, something that he naturally likes, no? Student like කියන්නකො බලන්න එකට ගැලපෙන එක. The student like actually holding responsibilities. He wants to actually play the role of the leader. You have seen it in him. So it's the unconditioned stimulus and response. So you actually give him the monitorship. Then, of course, the student will not get absent because neutral stimulus attendance is now combined with his leadership unconditioned stimulus. Now he can't get absent. So for 3 months or for 1 month, he is the monitor, so he doesn't get absent now because he likes performing his duties as a leader. And then the next month there will be a new monitor, but he has formed the new habit. Now there is the conditioned stimulus and conditioned response. Now the student, even though the class monitorship is not there, he now has got into the habit of learning, of coming to school every day, and he will continue to do the same. But you have to be mindful about the extinction after some time. It might gradually disappear. You have to stop that. You have a solution in B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning. We'll discuss it next time. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
So maybe as teachers, you might be doing this in class, right? Not knowing about classical conditioning. Am I right?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So next time when you come, bring me an example of classroom, example of classical conditioning. You're not going to give me the stories. You just tell me this is the neutral stimulus. This is the unconditioned stimulus. This is how I paired it up for some time. And this is how the acquisition happens. Will you be able to tell?
Try,
Ma'am?
madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. That is how you are going to talk to me. No stories. In my classroom example, this is the neutral stimulus. So I wanted it to be paired up with unconditioned stimulus. This is the unconditioned stimulus. Repeatedly paired up. And this is the new learning or the conditioned stimulus and the conditioned response. Very simple as that. I want you to bring your own experiences or thinking into the classroom next day. At the outset, I will get you to tell it to the rest of the class and then start with B.F. Skinner. Is it okay? So to sum up, what did we learn today? I actually completed the last part of cognition, that is forgetting. And I actually gave you Ebbinger's curve of forgetting, the time and remembering framework, and then Elizabeth Loftus' 4 reasons for forgetting. And we finished that unit with that. And then we started learning unit 4. And we gave the definition, the Woolfolk's definition of learning by looking at the 4 knots. Not only knowledge, not only in the classroom, not only right things, not only intentional. Okay. And then we started with learning theories. We did only one, that is classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov. Okay, this is what we did. And until we meet next time, see you. Good night. Bye-bye. Okay.
Good night. Thank you, madam.
Right, dear. Okay. Bye-bye. See you.
Madam.
Right. I have to stop sharing. And then To leave the meeting, now. How to leave the meeting? Here.